Hey guys, Kevin again, this right for Arrow, Season 3, Episode 21, Alsa Him, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I mean, last week's episode was probably the best episode of the entire show, I have to say, and I was very interested in seeing how the show was going to be, especially after the huge cliffhanger, and, now that Oliver joined the League of Assassins, I knew the show was probably going to go through some changes, and I have to say that this episode was great. As usual, of course it was great. It's Arrow. It's a great season, and let me say something about that I thought was interesting about this episode that it took me a little while to actually get into because this episode felt very different from other episodes of Arrow. Now, it did kind of remind me of when Oliver was, away from the team and he was supposedly dead and they had to continue without him. But this felt different because now Oliver's out there and I kind of like the way they did that here. But let's get into this episode because, as usual, it was amazing and there's a lot to talk about. So, after, Oliver joined League of Assassins, he's now undergoing training for 3 weeks at the Heir of the Demon and Alsa Him as Roz continues to tell him that Oliver Queen is gone. Because that part of his life is over. That part of his life is the Arrow. He has to give up his whole life. And here's the thing. Something I enjoyed last week, of course, is that we saw that Roz and Oliver are very alike. So, Roz knows what Oliver is going through, and I really like seeing that. So, basically, Mazeo brings Diggle over, and Diggle says he never made it home, and they held him prisoner for weeks, and Roz hands Oliver a sword and tells him to dispose of an intruder, and Oliver has Mazeo free Diggle and give him a sword and then attacks him. He easily takes Diggle and down and kills him and then kicks him over to reveal it's a different man, and I'm just like, there's no way they just killed Diggle. And obviously it's a different man, and Roz explains that he has been giving Oliver a drug to bring his conscience to the forefront, which is really messed up, but I mean, it is part of training, because Oliver definitely has taken a whole new persona and everything, and it actually has kind of changed Oliver, which I thought was interesting to see how much, Roz kind of changed Oliver, and we definitely see a lot of that throughout this episode, of Oliver kind of being changed, or rather affected by Roz, and how much it affected him, and I thought that was really interesting, definitely. So, basically, he has been, basically explains he's been giving Oliver a drug to bring his conscience to the forefront. He asks Oliver what he saw, but Oliver doesn't say anything, and Roz then tells Oliver he must see a place from the past, now a home only for the dead. So we go back to 5 years ago, and in Hong Kong, the government announces a state of alert. Helicopters fly overhead, and people start dying. And in the market, Oliver blames himself for losing the veil, and Tatsu insists that they go back to Akio. And definitely, there's some very dire times then that really connects with what Roz said, that the past is a home for the dead, because we see right away that people are dying, and it's not good. So Roz takes Oliver to the ruins of a village, and he explains that he and Damien Dark joined together to become the agents of the Roz at that time. And Damien believed himself worthy of becoming the heir, but Roz was chosen, so he had to kill him. And Roz hesitated, and Damien escaped with his loyalists and some water from the Lazarus Pit. And Damien created his organization and has been behind several criminal activities that have plagued Oliver. So you can definitely see that Roz, does have a conscience. He knew that some things he couldn't do, but it actually caused crime, and that if he had killed him, maybe all the crime and everything, maybe that wouldn't have gone on as much with Oliver, and we see that has gone on. I thought that was really interesting when we found that out. So, definitely that was something that I didn't think would happen, and I just thought overall that was really interesting stuff. So, Roz tells him that he must eliminate the threat to his reign without mercy. So in Starling City, this felt really different here, because we see the Black Canaries capturing Muggery as he tries to run. The man slashes her, and Nyssa shoots him, and something that some people have been complaining about is that Laurel has not been getting a lot, which, yes, she has been kind of to the sidelines, but that's because we focus so much on Oliver and him taking this offer from Ra's al Ghul. We had to take a little break from Laurel and her storyline. So I like that this episode had a lot more with Laurel, and we actually see her and Nyssa training, which is awesome, and Nyssa shooting him and warns that the mugger had 2 knives and knocks the man unconscious, and she says that she should continue Laurel's training, but Laurel wants to get something to eat, and Laurel has Nyssa eat fries and a milkshake, and says that it's good to see her act like a normal person, and it's kind of true. We never really get to see Laurel act like a normal person. We never get to see any of these characters act like a normal person, except for maybe Diggle. It's the only character thing we've actually gotten to see act like a normal person. Laurel, we don't really get to see, and I kind of like seeing that. I have to say that Laurel's acting more like a normal person and things like that, and for a while, I'm thinking, okay, is Laurel taking over for Oliver? Is, now that there's no more arrows, it's just Black Canary? And basically, Nyssa admits that she has a point, that she was raised to believe that only the strong survive, and she thanks Laurel, who says that she's only doing for Nyssa what Nyssa did for Sarah, and that's why she's doing this, because basically when Nyssa, she took Sarah in and gave her a life, and Laurel hesitates when Nyssa mentions Oliver, and then tells her that he's accepted Roz's offer, and this look on Nyssa, she's just like, why did he do this? Nyssa says that Laurel shouldn't have kept that information from her, and leaves, and you can tell that she's not happy about this. So, Felicity and Thea, in the meantime, are having dinner with Lila and Diggle, and, Diggle and Lila's, daughter, Sarah, and Diggle returns from a mission and says that he caught four gun smugglers thanks to Felicity's intel. Now, Felicity wants to design his costume, but Diggle refuses, which I think would probably be the right thing to do. I mean, at this point, since Diggle is part of Team Arrow, and of course Arrow's not there, they need to think of, how to rethink some things, and maybe getting Diggle a suit probably would be the right thing to do, but Diggle doesn't want to get a suit, and she says that they need to work out their new operation, and Diggle asks Thea how she's been doing since they had to leave Oliver and Nanda Parbat, and she admits that she misses her brother and blames herself for him sacrificing himself to save her. And I'm just like, Thea, don't blame yourself. It's not your fault, because it's not Thea's fault. None of this was Thea's fault. Oliver did this because he simply had to. He had to make this choice. And they toast to Oliver, and I thought that was really good. So we go back 5 years ago, and Oliver, Mazeo, and Tatsu come to a van, and soldiers are handing out what they claim is a cure. And the trio realize that Shrive's men are injecting people with the virus, and Oliver yells at the people to get away. The soldiers open fire. Oliver and Mazeo return fire, while Tatsu goes for the truck. Once they take it, Oliver says they have to destroy the virus, and that was a crazy scene, I have to say. So, Laurel finds Nyssa at her lair and apologizes for not telling her what happened. Nyssa points out that Laurel's tendency to keep secrets has separated her from her father, which is true. And I do like that Nyssa said that, because you would think that Laurel would learn from not telling her father about, Sarah dying, that she would learn that she does need to tell people, what's going on with things, but no, she still has a problem doing that, and I kind of like seeing that with this episode. This episode showed that even though Laurel, told, Lance about, took a while to tell Lance that Sarah was dead, that didn't stop her from hiding the secret, because honestly, it is a hard secret to tell. It's hard, and I thought that was interesting we saw that. So, she says that Laurel should go, and Laurel refused to abandon her friend, and Nyssa warns that Oliver will come as many men as he can to make sure that she's dead, because he wants to kill, because one of, their missions is going to be to kill Nyssa. So, on a nearby roof, Oliver, Mazeo, and a squad of assassins descend and prepare to find Nyssa and kill her, and Nyssa knows that they're coming after her. So, Laurel and Nyssa meet Diggle and Felicity at Palmer Technology, and Felicity insists that Oliver wouldn't hurt them, and Nyssa tells them that Oliver has been brainwashed, which this I thought was really good, because Oliver definitely seemed very different in this episode, and we see that Oliver's now been brainwashed, and basically Felicity insists that he's stronger than that, and that there's no way that he would, actually have much of a reaction, and you see that she does care for Oliver. I mean, I know that Felicity, loves Oliver and everything, but, I mean, let's face it, even people like Oliver will, end up being brainwashed and will fall for it, and Oliver, unfortunately, was a subject of that, and there's nothing that they can do about that. Oliver was subjected to brainwashing, and there's nothing more to it. So, basically, she tells Laurel that she's going to face Oliver and her destiny, and once she leaves, Felicity insists that Oliver won't kill Nyssa, and Laurel doesn't believe it, and Diggle points out that's what happens to Nyssa is none of their business, and despite this, Laurel says that Nyssa's a good person, and protecting good people is what they do, which is true, it is what they do. So, she says that she put a tracking device on Nyssa, and she'll lead them to the League. So 5 years ago, Oliver and Mazeo blow up the van, and Tatsu heads back to Lilling's apartment and her son, and Diggle and Laurel follow the tracking signal, and Laurel tells Diggle to let her handle Oliver on her own. Now, here's the thing of this episode. There's always some sort of villain of the week in this episode. That's probably the best thing. This time, the villain is Oliver, honestly. That's who's coming after them, is Oliver. And, sorry guys, the person that's coming after them, of course, is Oliver, and I think that's awesome that they made Oliver, like, this big antagonistic villain, because, yeah, Oliver definitely is going through a big transformation here, and while he's brainwashed right now, eventually he will get his, actual, his real self back, so I definitely mentioned seeing what's going to happen here. So basically, she figures that Diggle shouldn't have to face his friend in combat, and Diggle doesn't believe that Roz can turn Oliver against the people that he loves. He just doesn't feel like that's possible. So at Polymer Technologies, Felicity's monitoring the tracing device. When Thea comes in, she offers to help them on the streets and realizes that Felicity's holding something back. There's something she's definitely holding back, and Felicity warns that Oliver's back in town and hunting Nyssa, but insists that they're handling it. And I like that she didn't keep that from Thea, because it seemed like she was going to keep that from her, and I'm happy she didn't. So Thea offers to talk to her brother, but Felicity refuses to let her help and possibly get hurt after what Oliver sacrificed to save her. Now, I understand Thea, it feels really bad, but you have to understand that you can't talk to him right now, obviously. It's really dangerous, and if you want to end up dead, go ahead, by all means, talk to him, but Thea's not an idiot, so, she's not going to do that. So Oliver finds Sarah on the roof. And this scene I thought was huge that we saw this. I thought this was amazing, actually. So Oliver finds Sarah on the roof, where Sarah died, and says he's there to take her to Nanda Parbat, and he assures her that he won't beat her again, opens fire. Oliver ducks and then turns and opens fire. Nyssa deflects the shafts. They close hand to hand. Oliver takes Nyssa down, and however, Diggle and Black Canary arrive, and Black Canary uses her new canary cry. As Felicity watches on the monitor and confirms that's really Oliver, because she's not really sure that it is Oliver. She's thinking, okay, maybe it could be someone else, but she sees here that it is Oliver. The man that loves her, the man that she loves, and the man that had sex with her and everything, and that whole thing last week. Now he has been brainwashed, and he is now against all them. So Oliver dives off the edge of the building and disappears, and that was insane, I have to say. And one of the things about this episode is that there is constant action throughout this whole episode, so many scenes, and I thought that was awesome. So Nyssa binds her wounds and tells Laurel that she shouldn't have interfered, and Laurel refuses to let someone else in her life, but Nyssa says that she was doomed as soon as Oliver accepted her father's offer, and she tells Laurel that she gained great happiness striking off on her own, but as the daughter of the demon happiness, that was never meant for her. So Laurel says that if Oliver can change, then so can Nyssa, and I thought that was really interesting, because it's true. I mean, Nyssa is part of the League of Assassins, and now Oliver's part of the League of Assassins, so if Nyssa can change, so, if Oliver can change, no one's saying that Nyssa can't. So at Polymer Technologies, Diggle asks Felicity if she's okay. She's shocked to learn that Nyssa was telling the truth, because she really felt like Oliver was better than that, and she can't believe that Oliver has become this way. One of my favorite moments of this episode is just Felicity thinking, how the hell do we move on from here? So Diggle admits that he never imagined that Oliver would break, and Felicity says that she's only been able to go on because she thought Oliver was still alive, but now they've learned that he gave up his soul. He basically sold his soul to, I don't want to say the devil, because Roz is not the devil, but it wasn't good what he did, obviously. So, Oliver returns to the League's base and tells Mazeo that Nyssa has friends, and he says that they have to draw Nyssa out. And Thea calls Malcolm to her apartment and says that she needs his, and when he said that, I'm like, oh shit, this is not going to end well. So she asks if, Thea calls Malcolm to her apartment and says that she needs his help. She asks if Oliver's in town and going after Nyssa, and Malcolm admits that he does, and Thea intends to stop him from killing and says that she knows what's like under someone else's influence, and Malcolm reminds her that Oliver didn't sacrifice himself to save Thea, which he didn't. He didn't sacrifice himself. He saved her. But Thea says that this time she can do something about it. And her father considers and then asks her what she needs from him. And I'm just thinking this is not going to well for Thea, honestly. Thea is writing her own death here. She literally is writing her will if she's going to, like, seriously, you should just get out a piece of paper, write your own will, and because you're going to die if this happens, seriously. I don't think Thea realizes that she's not as powerful as she thinks she is. And I mean, Thea is a badass, I have to say. Everyone in the show is at some point a badass. Thea has had moments of being a badass, but out of all the girls, she's definitely the weakest. I mean, Felicity can kick some ass, but Thea, she can kick ass. But here's the thing. While she can kick ass, that does not mean she can take down Oliver. Oliver's way too strong right now. There's no way she can do it. So, Diggle brings Felicity home. Sarah starts crying. He draws his gun and confirms that Sarah's okay. And there's no sign of Lila, which this I thought was like, oh shit, is Oliver taking Lila? And Oliver calls and says that no harm will come to Lila if Diggle brings Nyssa hit him in the next 30 minutes. And that was insane. So Diggle and Felicity go to the warehouse, and again, this just feels like all the villains they've had to deal with, all of that. Now Oliver is one of them, and it just changes everything, and I loved seeing that. It reminds us of who Oliver's had to deal with. Now they have to deal with Oliver being this villainous presence, and it's awesome. And something I think everyone's always talked about is what happens if he goes dark, and he has gone dark. He's gone dark now, and he's the enemy, which I think is just really interesting overall. So basically, Diggle and Felicity go to the dock warehouse where Nyssa's living, and Diggle furious says that there are some lines that even killers don't cross, and Nyssa says that she didn't intend any harm to come to Lila, and Diggle tells her to surrender herself to the League and prove it, and Laurel objects, saying that she won't trade one person for another, but Nyssa agrees to sacrifice herself, and she ignores Laurel's objections, but Laurel insists that there must be another way, and if they hand Nyssa over, then Oliver won't be the only one to lose his soul. So Lila asks Oliver how the man who stood up for Diggle at their wedding could use her as a hostage, and Oliver orders her to be quiet, but Lila says that Diggle's guilt over his brother's death destroyed him, until Oliver gave him hope, which is true. That is really what ended up happening, that Oliver was the one to give him hope. But now that Oliver is dark and is kind of, I don't want to say soulless, but in some ways he is kind of soulless. I mean, he doesn't have much of a soul right now. Definitely since all that's going on, you know that it's just really crazy what's going on, definitely. I mean, that definitely is pretty crazy, and I really like seeing that, I have to say. I thought that was really, really insane, but I definitely, definitely really enjoyed seeing that scene, I have to say. I like that they keep referring things that's, we've seen Oliver have to deal with, but now Oliver is doing. So, Oliver and the others go back to the apartment and find Liling unconscious on the floor, and Oliver and Tatsu agree that they have to leave Hong Kong and use the chaos to cover their escape. And one of the things about the flashbacks now is that they're kind of crucial now, because now we're seeing what Oliver used to be and who he is now, and that's something I definitely love seeing. So Diggle and the others arrive at the rendezvous. Mazeo searches them for weapons. Oliver has a man bring Lila out, and Felicity tells Mazeo not to touch her. He backs off at Oliver's orders, and Felicity tries to get through to Oliver, and he's completely ignoring her. He has his men release Lila, who hugs Felicity, and Mazeo orders Nyssa to kneel, and she refuses. Lila shoots the gun that Felicity shipped in, and Diggle grabs a discarded sword and fights Oliver, while Nyssa takes on Mazeo. An assassin warns Laurel. Mazeo takes down a distracted Nyssa, and his men drag her away, which I thought was a crazy scene, I have to say. So Oliver wounds Diggle and prepares to run him through, and basically Diggle insists that he's still Oliver, because he is still Oliver, and Thea arrives wearing a robe, shoots an arrow into Oliver's arm, tells her brother to get away from Diggle. Oliver walks away, and it seems like she could stop him. I mean, finally we see that maybe Thea could have stopped him, and back at the lair, Diggle tells the team that Lila's hanging out of town with Sarah, and Laurel realizes that Oliver or Roz will kill Nyssa, and Diggle warns Felicity that there's no way of getting Oliver back. He says that they're the only thing left of Oliver, and in the end of Parbat, Oliver brings Nyssa before Roz, and Mazeo says that what they seek is not on Nyssa, and Roz opens the hilt of her sword, removes a vial, and after Mazeo takes it away, Roz says that he will remember her as the warrior she wants more. Nyssa, defiant, says that she's not afraid, and unimpressed, Roz tells Oliver to kill her and assures Rain. Oliver draws his word, prepares to drive it down, but Roz stops him and says that he succeeded in breaking Nyssa when he could not, and he suggests that Oliver marry Nyssa to unite their families, and Nyssa says she would rather die, but Roz says she will marry his heir and become the bride of the demon. So this whole plan was just for Oliver to marry Nyssa, which I thought was insane that happened. I mean, seriously, this training is some of the craziest training I've seen, and I love that it's different than anything else Arrow's ever done. It's awesome, I have to say. So back 5 years ago, Oliver hotwires a car. Tatsu assures Akio that they're safe and notices him bleeding at the mouth. Felicity visits Thea at her apartment, and Thea says that Oliver should have let her die. She admits that she didn't know that Felicity and Oliver were involved, and Felicity admits that it was complicated, and Felicity says that they have to remember the best parts of Oliver and go on living, and she then tells Thea that they faked and gives her Roy's address and says that Thea can be with him if she wants, and that's going to be really cool, because we know that Roy is coming back in the season somehow, so maybe Thea does get that life she wants with Roy. Honestly, I could see it happening to her. I mean, that's something that Thea does deserve, is a life with Roy, because that's what she wants. She wants to be with Roy, and Roy's lucky because he got away from the team. He doesn't have to deal with all this, so he definitely is lucky, and he has an advantage, and Thea should go be with him because he's happy right now. So at his apartment, Dig looks at a photo of himself and Oliver together, knowing that, things are different now, and Laurel has a milkshake alone, and Felicity goes to the lair and cries. They have no idea what's going on right now. Roz tells Oliver the final step in becoming Roz is to destroy one's home. He hands Oliver the vial. Oliver recognizes it as the Alpha Omega blow weapon, and Nyssa stole it to prevent what Oliver is destined to do. Unleashed on Starling City, and that's how the episode ends. So a lot to talk about, definitely. I have to say, is Oliver fully gone? I mean, there has to be something that can bring Oliver back. I can't think that the rest of the show, Oliver's going to be this savage killer. There's no way that they're going to do this. I mean, Oliver, the thing about Oliver is that he's a layered character, and if he is just like this the rest of the show, I don't know if I'm gonna like the show as much, because I really love this episode, I did, but I don't know if they can do this to the rest of the show. Do you think they're actually gonna do this? Is Oliver actually fully dark now? Is there a way to get him back to who he was? I mean, there has to be. You can't just tell me that Oliver's gonna be like this for the rest of the show. There's no way that that's gonna happen. There's no way that Oliver is gonna fully stay like this for the rest of the show, but we'll see, I guess. I think that Thea getting away from them is probably the best thing to do. I mean, as I said, Roy's lucky. She should go be with Roy. I mean, Thea, honestly, is the one that is the most in danger right now, because Thea is the only one without some sort of power, and she just, is unexperienced, and she hasn't really done much. I mean, she's definitely strong, but I don't think she can take down Oliver, so I think she should probably just be with Roy at this point, honestly. It's probably the best thing to do. So Felicity, Diggle, and Laurel, they're all really in danger. I definitely sense a huge death coming, and I think that's really going to get Oliver to realize what's going on. I think we're definitely getting another Tommy, honestly. I think this season we're getting another Tommy death. I think that's going to happen, and I think that's going to get Oliver to finally realize that who he really is, because the season finale is called I Am Oliver Queen. Now, is this wedding with Nyssa and Oliver, is all this actually going to happen? I'm not really sure if they're actually going to get married. I don't know if Oliver's really going to go through with it. We'll have to see what happens there, because I really don't know how Oliver's going to approach this, especially when that whole thing with him and Felicity went down, but pretty much that whole thing is gone. So Felicity, I really do feel bad for. I mean, can she possibly get Oliver to who he was? I mean, to me, it just seems like the only way to do that is for someone to die, and Oliver's going to realize what he did, and it's not going to involve for anyone, honestly. It's going to be really sad. We'll see what happens there, though. Now, who I think is going to die? Possibly Thea, honestly. I think Thea's the one that's probably going to get it this season. Think of who's gone in the past. Tommy, his best friend, his mother, and now all we need is his sister to go. And if his sister dies, then he's gonna... Or, Felicity's not gonna die, okay? We're saying that now. Felicity's pretty much safe. She's always gonna be safe. Laurel, I think, is good. Diggle, I think the only one in danger really is Thea. I think Thea, honestly, is probably going to die this season, and that's what's going to convince Oliver to stop being, this killer and go back to being the Arrow. We'll see what ends up happening. Is he going to be able to convince Roz to let him be the Arrow again? I'm not really sure what's going to happen in these final 2 episodes, but I guess we'll have to see. But overall, guys, great episode as usual. I thought it was definitely very different, but I really like seeing this side of Oliver. I mean, I don't like seeing this side of Oliver. Is there a way that Oliver can go back? I'm not really sure. But that's it for this review. Hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for, actually, guys, check out my movie preview as well. But that's not actually by me. Kane LaPlante, aka Kid of Awesome. He is in charge of that video. Definitely check it out. That's up. And my next video will be for another classic movie review. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.